Good day, my name is Adele Holtapfel. I am a consultant at About IT. Today we're going to look at the Acumatica Cloud ERP fixed asset configuration. The fixed asset lifecycle is very crucial. It allows you to manage your valuable items effectively and add more useful life of an asset to your organization. The fixed asset module fully integrates with all other Acumatica modules. The key benefits are to manage assets consistent with the generally accepted accounting principles, multiple books to minimize tax and compliance issues, multiple depreciation methods and averaging options, initiate transactions from purchasing in accounts payable or fixed asset transactions posted to the general ledger. But before we can use this fixed asset module, we need to do configuration and setups. We are going to look at the following configurations and setups. We're going to look at the departments, chart of accounts, the fixed asset preferences, disposal method, posting books, the depreciation methods, the asset types, the fixed asset classes. We're going to start off with the departments. So let's go to Acumatica. In the search box, you can type in departments and you will find it under your configuration organization. Department, fixed asset belongs to departments that are used for dividing the company by the functional areas used in an organization. Under the department ID, you will put in an ID which will be your identifier, a description. You also have expense account and expense SIP account. These accounts will be used for recording department-related expenses. However, we're going to use departments for our SIP accounts. So I'm just going to add the departments. And you will see later when we do our classes, where we will use these SIP accounts. And we click on Save. Next, we're going to look at the different chart of accounts that we need for our fixed asset module. The following accounts is necessary. We will look at account receivable accrual account. You use this account for recording the proceeds from a sale of a fixed asset. The accrued purchase account. This account will keep the cost of the purchases that have not been converted to a fixed asset. Fixed asset cost accounts. These accounts book the value of the fixed asset. Accumulated depreciation accounts. These accounts hold the accumulated depreciation of the fixed asset. Or depreciation expense account. This account accumulates depreciation expenses. And then lastly, profit loss account for fixed assets. This account keeps the profit or loss from the disposal of fixed assets. Next, we're going to look at the fixed asset preferences. This is where you will configure the fixed asset module. So in Acumatica, we will go to our fixed assets. Under preferences, you will find fixed asset preferences. From the top left-hand side, under account settings, you will find your fixed asset accrual account and the SIP account, the proceed account, and the proceeds SIP account. Under other, we have the depreciation history view. This is the way the depreciation history is displayed in your depreciation history tab on your fixed asset form. There are two options what you can choose from, side by side or by book. If you select side by side, for every book to which the asset is assigned, the table displays the calculated and amounted depreciation in separate columns. If you select the by book, you select the book and the system displays the depreciation of the asset record in the selected book. Then we have depreciate in disposal period. If you select the checkbox, it will make sure that the asset is depreciated in all financial periods before the current financial period you dispose of the asset. Show accurate depreciation. When you select the box, it's the way calculated depreciation amounts are displayed in the system. If you select the box, for example, you will view the reported depreciation amount for the previous financial periods and the depreciation adjustment for the current period. If you unselect the checkbox, You will view the calculated depreciation amounts. Next one, what we have there is required full reconciliation before disposal. The checkbox you select to prohibit of assets that have the unreconciled amount. And then you can review the unreconciled amount for each asset on the reconciliation tab of your fixed asset form. Allowed to modify predefined depreciation methods. If you select it, yes, you can make changes to the predefined depreciation method in the system. However, we prefer that you create your own based on the predefined ones. In the top right-hand side, we look at the numbering settings. The first one there is your numbering, your transaction numbering, where you can set up your own sequence. If we click there, you can decide, for example, I want to change this, and then you can create your own sequence. The next one is for asset numbering. If you want to use manual numbering, you will select the manual box, and then you're going to type in your own fixed asset IDs. But we want the system to generate our IDs. That's why I'm not going to select it. However, you can also change the sequence. The next one is your batch numbering. This is the reference for any batch number, batches that you're going to use in your fixed asset module. Once again, it's just the sequence numbering. You also have tag numbering sequence where you can set up, and then you can also copy the tag number for asset IDs. If you want to use tag numbers for your IDs, you can select that option. Under your posting settings, you actually tell the system what to do with a transaction. If you select the box, it will automatically release the transactions. These are a list of all the fixed asset transactions. There's your acquisitions, your depreciation, disposal, transfer, reversal, and split transactions. Update the general ledger. Check means fixed asset transaction documents will update the general ledger. You will only uncheck if you do not want to update the general ledger. Normal, this will be unchecked when you import your fixed assets into Acumatica. Automatically post on release. And means if transactions associated with a fixed asset document should be automatically posted on release. Post summary on updating GL. A checkbox that you select to allow posting of batches with summary data to the general ledger. For these transaction accounts that allow posting of summary values should be used. The last one, post depreciation summary on updating GL. If you select the checkbox, it will post batches with depreciation data by summarizing to the general ledger. So now we configure the fixed asset module. Next step in our fixed asset module, we have to create our disposal methods. So we go back to our fixed assets, preferences, and then you will find disposal methods. It's very straightforward. You can have as many disposal methods as what your company require. I already created 3 different ones. Once again, you've got your ID, which is your identifier, description, and then you put it in your proceed accounts, the accounts that you're going to use for your disposal methods. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. We went through our fixed asset preferences. We went through our disposal methods. The next configuration that we need to do is our posting books, which is very important for our fixed asset module. The posting books, all assets must be assigned to a posting book. The purpose of this book is to update the general ledger. You can have multiple books. If multiple books are assigned to a fixed asset, the transactions for this asset are recorded to all of these books, but only one book is used for updating the general ledger. The posting book uses the financial year and financial period settings from the general ledger module. For each non-posting book, you have to create a calendar which is used to record depreciation expenses according to the calendar periods. These periods may differ from the financial period defined for general ledger. Let's go and look at our posting books. Under your fixed asset preferences, you will find books. I created the 2 books. You will see once again, you've got your ID, which is your identifier, the actual book, description, fixed asset posting book, and then we select posting book. This book will post to the general ledger module. Then you have your mid-period type. And the mid-period type is the ruling defining the middle of the period to be used for averaging conventions. The average convention, which determines how fixed assets will be depreciated for periods within which assets were acquired or disposed of, is selected on the depreciation settings tab of the fixed asset classes. Now, we already created this under your classes, which is your fixed day, but you have two options here. You have fixed day and you've got number of days. Fixed day used to set a particular date, which is specified in the mid-period date column as the last day of the first half of the period. Number of days you use when you specify the number of days, which is specified in the mid-period date column. The system will add to the first date of the calendar month to calculate the last day of the first half of the period. So we're going to work with fixed day and we're going to select 15. The mid-period day is 15, as well as for my tax book. Next, what we need to do, we have to make sure that our fixed asset calendar is set up. Remember, you have your general ledger financial period set up, but in fixed asset, you also have to make sure it's been set up. Under fixed assets, you will go to your processes and you will find generate book calendars. From period, this will be the oldest asset period you can put in here. If you have an asset, for example, like I've done in year 2010, I will put in 2010. You will have to look at your fixed asset depreciation useful life. I use buildings, for example. The building have 39 years, for example, a useful life. Then I will add 39 years and I will get to 2060, for example. So what you do, you just type in 2010 to 2060, click on process, and there you created your book calendar for your posting book. The other book is a tax book. You can't generate calendars for that book on this screen. We need to go to a different screen. To do that, we will go to fixed assets. Under your preferences, you will go to book calendar setup. And under your book calendar setup, you will select the book, which is your tax book, and then you will create your years that you want to use. So I already created all the years that I want to use. If you want to start with 2010, for example, you will start with 2010 and then you click on create periods. And 2011, and you go until you're done, till where you want to be with this period for this book calendar setup. Next, we're going to look at the different depreciation methods. For each fixed asset that you create in the system, you need to select an appropriate depreciation method and depreciation settings. The system allocates the cost of fixed asset during the asset's useful life by using the specified depreciation methods. Depreciation methods can be divided into two groups. Formula-based depreciation methods. The system uses a formula for calculating depreciation expenses. Table depreciation methods. For each depreciation period, the system uses a fixed percent for calculating depreciation expenses. Let's look at the two different depreciations. Under your preferences, you have your depreciation method. This method is the formula-based depreciation methods. Here's all the predefined depreciation methods. Remember I said earlier, you can add your own depreciation methods. If we look at, for example, the first one, there's your ID, which will be your identifier, the calculated method that you're going to use. You also have your description. There's your DB multiplier. The DB multiplier is the percentage of depreciation acceleration used by declining balance calculation methods for calculating the depreciation rate, which in turn is required for calculating the depreciation expense per year. You also have a little box there that says switch to straight line, a checkbox that you select to direct the system to switch from declining balance calculation method to straight line method when the depreciation amount calculated by using the straight line method is greater than the depreciation amount calculated for the declining method. Then you have your percentage per year. You also have a source. There are two types of sources, predefined or custom. Predefined, the depreciation method predefined by the system. The settings of this method cannot be edited by the user. Custom, the depreciation method configured by the user. At the top right-hand side, you have your averaging convention. This is the way fixed asset will be depreciated for the period within which the asset was acquired or disposed. You should select the average convention depending on the depreciation method you specify. And then yearly accountancy, a checkbox that you select to direct the system to calculate the depreciation amount on a yearly basis. Let's look at the other depreciation. The other depreciation is your depreciation table methods. You will see there's a lot predefined depreciation table methods in Acumatica. If you open one, for example, here you will see the issue ID, a report type, there's a class method, the useful life, recovery period, your description, average convention period, total percentage, your source, and then you have your table where you can set up your percentage per year. The next setup that we need to look at will be our fixed asset types. Under your preferences, you will find your fixed asset types. Acumatica have predefined asset types. These asset types cover the most used types of fixed assets and define whether the assets are tangible and depreciatable. They are already been set up. Once again, you can add or you can modify the ones that's already been set up. Next, we're going to look at our fixed asset classes. Under, once again, fixed asset preferences, fixed asset classes. Fixed asset classes group your assets, provide default settings that are inserted when you create an asset and specify the class. You can assign one depreciation book or multiple depreciation books to a fixed asset class. When you create a fixed asset and select the class, the fixed asset type is copied from the fixed asset class by default. Defines a default depreciation method to be applied to a fixed asset of the class and the rules for combining the sub-accounts used in the fixed asset transactions. You can view reports and inquiries on your fixed asset classes. Let's look at our fixed asset classes. Let's create a new one. We're going to click on plus and we're going to call this one computers. This is the optional parent class which you can select from a list of existing asset classes. You will see we only have one at this stage. Description, let's put in computers, accessories. Then we go to our general ledger settings tab. Here you specify your asset type. We're going to go for computers. Tangible is already selected and you can depreciate computers. And then you will put in the useful life for computers, which is 5. Accelerated depreciation for straight line depreciation method. If you a checkbox that indicates, if it's selected, that the revalue net book value of an asset of the class must be depreciated during the remaining useful life of the asset. Under your depreciation settings, here will be a list of all the books that you have set up. There's your posting book. The class method, here you select your depreciation method. We're going to work with a straight line on this one. Then your averaging convention, a convention that determines how fixed assets of this class will be depreciated for the period within which the asset was acquired or disposed. And here's a list of average convention. For this one, we're going to work with mid-period. I'm going to change the depreciation method that you can see what's going to happen. I'm going to work with a mid-quarter one. If you choose this macro MQ, you will see by default it will change to mid-quarter. So it depends on what depreciation method you will choose, that will select the average convention. If you just choose straight line, for example, Then you have to do a manual one. You have to select which one you want to use. I'm going to use the same one, for example. And then you have set up your depreciation settings. Lastly, we have to go to the General Ledger Accounts tab, and here you will specify the necessary GL accounts for this fixed asset class. For computers, we're going to put in our fixed asset account and the SIP account. And then you get your combined fixed asset SIP from. A SIP account mask that defines the rule of composing the fixed asset SIP account from other SIP accounts associated with the document. Those defined for the fixed asset class, department, the location, and the fixed asset self. To set up this segment, on that field, you just press F3, and there you will find the different options that you can use. AAA stands for the fixed asset, CCC stands for the class, and DD for the department, and LL stands for the branch. Let's work, we're going to work with the department. So I'm going to select the department. And the next one I'm going to leave as the fixed asset class. And the last one I'm also going to use the fixed asset class. The accumulated depreciation account. And then of course the SIP accounts. Depreciation expense account. And then of course again your combination depreciation expense SIP. You can type it in if you know the accounts. You can put in your proceed account here, which is the default one. Remember, when you set up your disposal method, you also put in your proceed account. And then we have our profit and loss, our gain and loss account. And then we set up our fixed asset class. Thank you for watching this training video. Goodbye.